A couple of you may have seen some of my older videos and noticed at least one area that I've been to in the past, Central Park. Today, this area has many houses, restaurants and shops, an FBI building, a park, and a train station where RTD's A-Line stops. And I've been to this area on several trips. I passed through here on my way to DIA for a flight to El Paso in 2023. I went here at the end of my last day of high school in 2022 to ride the A-Line to DIA as a bit of an end of high school joyride, and I saw Union Pacific Big Boy number 4014 pass through here in 2021. The A-Line has existed for, 9 years now, and the Union Pacific line for over 100, but until 30 years ago, this place was once dominated by airplanes, for this was once Stapleton International Airport. Originally opened on October 17, 1929, Stapleton International Airport became the main airport for travelers flying in and out of Denver. It was the gateway to the Rockies. In particular, Continental Airlines and United Airlines had a major presence at Stapleton, before the two eventually became one in 2010. Denver was at one point the headquarters of Continental Airlines, as in October 1937, Continental moved to Denver, and it would remain that way until 1963, and United Airlines opened a pilot training center near Stapleton, which actually still exists today. Stapleton's rise came in the 1950s with flights traveling to all sorts of destinations across the United States, and this is when the airport gained its horseshoe-shaped terminal. The airport would see the jet age for the first time in 1959 when a Continental Airlines 707 operated to the airport. Then in 1970, the airport would see its first Boeing 747, also from Continental. The airport would officially gain the International title in 1964, but it didn't receive its first international route until 4 years later when Western Airlines started non-stop Denver to Calgary service. The airport would ultimately have 5 concourses, with Concourse A being occupied mostly by Frontier Airlines, different Frontier Airlines by the way, B by United, C with Continental and Western, and D, which would open later on, would have various other airlines in the concourses. This airport would be a major traveling hub for all sorts of airlines, and United and Continental's presence especially helped boost the airport. None of this was without incident, though. Several incidents would occur in and around Stapleton over its lifetime. In 1955, United Airlines Flight 629 was blown up over Longmont by Jack Gilbert Graham, intending to kill his own mother. 6 years later, another United Airlines flight crashed on landing due to asymmetric reverse thrust on engines 1 and 2, resulting in a loss of control, killing 17 of the 122 passengers on board. And in 1987, Continental Airlines Flight 1713 would crash on takeoff with 28 of the 82 occupants perishing due to inexperienced pilots. In addition, several other flights have taken off from Stapleton and never made it to their destinations. Despite all that, Stapleton continued to be served by many airlines, and it grew tremendously when the airline industry was deregulated in 1978. But that growth would ultimately become Stapleton's downfall. Cramped tarmacs, a lack of space, complaints by local residents, and general pain from winters would ultimately cause state and city leaders to decide to build an entirely new airport for Denver. Yet, Stapleton would still continue to gain new destinations, including to Europe, where even in its twilight years, Stapleton would be served by British Airways with flights to the UK and Martinair with flights to Amsterdam. And although the airport had a slightly extended lifespan, as the new Denver airport became a pain to build and had to go through $2 billion worth of design changes, resulting in the airport's opening being delayed from October 1993 to February 1995, which absolutely did not make people think that there's some weird crap with things like some New World Order or aliens or whatnot, except I'm just kidding, but I don't buy into that conspiracy crap. Eventually, the clock would run out on Stapleton. Finally, the new airport would be ready, and Stapleton would soon be no more. The day finally came, February 27th, 1995. Despite several glitches and an incredibly bad automatic baggage mover, DIA's runways and terminals were ready. And there was even at one point an air show on the tarmac of DIA in spring of 1994, with several planes, including several United Airlines planes, in the then new Battleship Gray livery, and at least one Federal Express DC-10 and N68056 showcased at the new airport. For some people, it was just another day. For others, it was more than just a day. It would be a day where the sights and sounds at Stapleton would occur for the last time. Even many residents around the airport would struggle to get used to the sound of no airplanes.
For 14 years, Stapleton has been part of Michael Rhodes' life. He says he'll actually miss the noise. Silence is going to take some getting used to.
But I can't believe this. Can you believe this? It's like they disappeared off the face of the earth.
It's sad.
Just listen how quiet. This is eerie, just the wind blowing. It's eerie.
Since United Airlines had a major presence at Stapleton, many United employees would make the occasion joyous. Despite the fact that it was the last day of an airport many of them had worked in for years.
Saying goodbye can make the mundane seem memorable. At Denver Stapleton Airport today, the last tickets, the last bags, the last flight became bittersweet.
In fact, at 2:45 this afternoon, United's ceremonial last flight from Stapleton, flight 1850, departed gate B18 for Washington Dulles. Outside, some 50 United employees gave their final salute. They said so long to Stapleton.
Not long afterwards, United Airlines flew 2 Boeing 757s and one 727 over Stapleton as a blue flight to salute Stapleton. Finally, there was just one more plane to arrive at Stapleton and another to depart. The last flight to arrive in Stapleton was Delta Airlines Flight 569 from Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, or DFW. This flight used a Boeing 727 registered N400DA that was built in 1975. The flight landed at 7:59 p.m. that night, and this would mark the final arrival of a flight to Stapleton International Airport.
On a separate concourse, another history-making flight, Delta Flight 569 from Dallas, one of the last scheduled flights to land at Stapleton.
We hope our luggage made it.
We're going to take pictures and frame the tickets and, so be it.
The 727 was likely ferried to another airport on a non-revenue flight not long after it landed. It would eventually be scrapped at Victorville. Finally, the last flight to depart Stapleton. The last flight was originally going to be a flight bound for Steamboat Springs.
The last flight out of Stapleton is a DP Express flight. It's 2391. It's going to be on its way to Steamboat Springs at 8:15 p.m. And actually at 12:01 in the morning, that's when the air traffic controllers shift over to DIA, and basically air traffic control stops here at Stapleton and the place shuts down.
Then it would be a flight using a Piper Malibu, but in the end, Stapleton's last flight would be Continental Airlines Flight 34 en route to London Gatwick. Pretty appropriate in my opinion because of Continental's presence at Stapleton, despite the fact that they had moved out a lot of things by then in preparation for Stapleton's closure. This final flight out of Stapleton would be operated with a McDonnell Douglas DC-10 registered N12061. Originally built and delivered for Continental Airlines in 1980 and named Richard M. Adams, it wore the Continental Airlines' meatball livery before wearing the Globe livery by the time Stapleton closed. And now it would have the honor of being the last flight to leave Stapleton Airport. In addition, Des Jorgen, who would make final boarding announcements for flights at Stapleton for years, who retired in 1994, would come back to make a final boarding announcement at Stapleton one last time.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Des Jorgen.
Des Jorgen spent 39 years making final boarding announcements here at Stapleton. He retired a year ago, but was invited back for this final flight.
Anybody with a hitch in their get-along needs a little extra time in boarding, please.
Some of the passengers didn't even know when they booked Continental Flight 34 to London, this would be historical. The last flight out of Stapleton ever.
I certainly didn't know anything about it.
But for those who know this airport best, it's a sentimental time.
There's some good times here and some bad times here, and you recall that, and it's been a difficult day.
This last flight would be piloted by Captain Gary Gomo Greer, First Officer Scott Nutter, yes, that was actually his last name, and Second Officer Bob Horn. The Piper would leave first before Flight 34, and George Hosford would direct the last two flights out of Stapleton. Malibu 45 Delta, contact departure, you all take care. 45 Delta, and after the last one leaves, be sure to turn off the lights. We'll do that. Take care. Soon enough, after several delays from the original 8:30 departure time, it was the Continental flight's turn to leave the airport. Continental 34 Heavy, you ready? Yeah, we might need about 30 seconds on the hold out there. Continental 34 Heavy, runway 35 left, taxi into position and hold. Position and hold, Continental 34 Heavy, and Continental 34 Heavy, we're ready. At 9:39 p.m., the flight would take off from Stapleton and close the airport's final chapter. Continental 34 Heavy, roger, and runway 35 left, cleared for takeoff. Wind 070 at 10. Cleared for takeoff, Continental 34 Heavy. We will miss this place. A lot of memories. I think we all will. Thank you. Continental 34 Heavy, turn right heading 010, contact departure, and you all take care. We'll see you at the new place. Okay, 010, going to departure. We'll see you later now. Continental 34 Heavy. Tower Op 7. Op 7, Tower? Well, this grand old airport is now officially closed. You can shut the runway lights off and we'll issue the no TAMs. Thank you, Ron, and it's been fun. Same here. And with that, the last flights went through Stapleton. All that remained at Stapleton was one person from Brazil who stayed overnight before leaving to get a bus to DIA. And with that, Stapleton was closed forever. At 12:01 a.m. on February 28, 1995, Denver International Airport would open for revenue service for the first time. Today, Denver International Airport is the main airport for travelers coming in and out of Denver, and the structure of the airport is a bit iconic as well. To paraphrase Reed McVeigh, the facility is a superb feat of architecture, topped by its iconic Teflon-coated fiberglass roof that mimics the snow-capped peaks of the distant Rocky Mountains. DIA now serves as a hub for United, Southwest, Frontier, and Denver Air Connection, with flights from a variety of airlines connecting people as near as Colorado Springs, Telluride, and Steamboat Springs to as far as London, Paris, Istanbul, and Tokyo. An automated people mover carries passengers, employees, pilots, and flight attendants from the terminal to the gates and vice versa. This airport also includes a lot of artwork both outside of the airport and inside of the airport. Some scary, with the most iconic of them, and arguably the scariest, being the blue Mustang at the entrance to the airport, most commonly named Blucifer, while other pieces of art inside of the airport aren't exactly so scary. Some other pieces inside the airport talk about Colorado's heritage, and there are a couple of statues here too. This airport now continues the success and the status of Denver that Stapleton brought to the city in the 1950s. And although some destinations that used to connect to Denver at Stapleton, like Amsterdam, which was once connected to Denver by Martin Air, which now no longer carries passengers, and some airlines which used to serve Stapleton, such as Condor, don't serve Denver anymore, it still sees many flights from many airlines that reach to destinations far and wide. But for some people, they still have fond memories of another airport, and while the area may be known as Central Park now, some will better know it for the name of the airport that once stood there: Stapleton.
Airline's last flight out of Stapleton Airport.
Showed off in wing-to-wing formation.
For this city, it is a last chance to celebrate and look back and quietly realize people here may have been closer to the old airport than they thought. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Denver.
My info about Stapleton Airport comes from the Wikipedia article about Stapleton and Reed McVeigh's video of Stapleton Airport. In addition, this transcript of the last flight out of Stapleton was from Aeromo, so a huge shout out to him. All the photos and videos of Stapleton belong to their respective owners. Any YouTube video links of any footage used here will be in the description. Thank you for watching.